The archaeologist's discovery. The red dust of Mars swirled around Dr. Zara Blackwood's boots as she carefully descended into the excavation pit. 3 months of digging had revealed what appeared to be the most significant archaeological find in human history, a structure that predated any known Martian civilization by millennia. The morning sun cast long shadows across the dig site, highlighting the geometric patterns carved into ancient stone walls. "Hand me the resonance scanner," Zara called to her assistant, Dr. Yuki Tanaka, who was cataloging artifacts at a nearby workstation. The young communications specialist had joined the expedition specifically because of the strange electromagnetic readings they detected from orbit. "Still getting those unusual energy signatures?" Yuki asked, passing down the device with steady hands despite the bulky environmental suit. "Stronger than yesterday," Zara replied, running the scanner along a section of wall covered in intricate symbols. "Whatever's down here, it's not completely dead." Professor Marcus Reed emerged from the temporary shelter they'd constructed at the dig site's edge. At 67, he was one of the most respected xenoarchaeologists in the solar system, and his presence lent credibility to what many colleagues considered a fool's errand. Mars had been thoroughly surveyed for decades. The idea that they'd missed something this significant seemed impossible. "Any progress with the translation matrix?" Reed asked, his weathered face showing concern. The symbols they'd uncovered didn't match any known language, human or otherwise. "The patterns are consistent," Zara said, not looking up from her work. "But they seem designed for a completely different cognitive structure. See these branching sequences? They suggest thinking patterns unlike anything in human linguistics." Commander Janet Torres approached from the landing pad where their transport waited. The military liaison had been assigned to the expedition by Earth Central Command, officially for security, but everyone knew she was there to monitor potential discoveries that might have strategic implications. "Dr. Blackwood," Torres said, her voice carrying the crisp authority of career military. "I've received new instructions from Command. They want a full report on the energy readings by tomorrow." Zara paused her scanning. "What kind of instructions?" "The defensive kind," Torres replied grimly. "Long-range sensors have detected unusual activity in the outer system, ships that don't match any known human or corporate designs." The team exchanged worried glances. First contact scenarios had been theorized for centuries, but always in the abstract. The reality of potentially hostile alien vessels was something entirely different. "All the more reason to understand what we found here," Reed said diplomatically. "If this site is connected to whoever's out there, we need answers." Zara returned to her work with renewed urgency. The resonance scanner indicated a hollow space behind the symbol-covered wall. Something significant lay beyond. She adjusted the device's settings, increasing its penetration depth, when the scanner suddenly went silent. "That's odd," she muttered, checking the power levels. The device was functioning perfectly, but it was no longer detecting anything beyond the wall. It was as if the space behind it had simply vanished. "Let me try the ultrasonic mapper," Yuki suggested, pulling out a different instrument. The results were identical, solid rock where moments before there had been empty space. "The wall is adapting," Zara said with growing excitement. "It's responding to our scanning attempts." Reed stepped closer, his scientific curiosity overriding his caution. "Adaptive camouflage? From a civilization that old?" Before anyone could respond, the symbols on the wall began to glow with a soft blue light. The team instinctively stepped back as the luminescence spread across the entire surface, creating patterns that seemed to shift and flow like liquid. "Recording everything," Yuki announced, her instruments capturing every detail of the phenomenon. The glowing reached a crescendo, then suddenly stopped. In the silence that followed, they heard a sound none of them had expected, a soft chime, almost musical, coming from somewhere behind the wall. "It's trying to communicate," Zara whispered. Commander Torres was already on her radio. "Command, we have a situation at the dig site. Possible alien technology activation. Request immediate backup." "Delay that order," Reed said firmly. "We need to understand what's happening before we bring in the military." Torres looked conflicted but lowered her radio. "5 minutes, Professor." Then I make the call. Zara approached the wall carefully, her scanner held before her like a shield. The symbols were no longer glowing, but they seemed different somehow, more defined, as if they'd gained depth and meaning. "The translation matrix is working now," she said with amazement. "It's not that we couldn't read the language before. The wall wasn't ready to be read." "What does it say?" Reed asked. Zara worked quickly, her scanner converting the symbols into mathematical relationships, then into conceptual frameworks her mind could grasp. It's an instruction manual for something called a deep beacon." The chiming sound came again, louder this time, and a section of the wall began to recede into the stone. Behind it lay a chamber filled with crystalline structures that pulsed with inner light. "My God," Yuki breathed. "It's beautiful." At the center of the chamber stood a device unlike anything in human technology. It was roughly spherical, composed of what appeared to be living crystal that constantly shifted between different geometric configurations. Energy flowed through it in patterns that hurt to look at directly. "The deep beacon," Zara said, reading from her scanner. "It's designed for long-range communication, interstellar distances." Torres stepped forward. "Communication with whom?" "The architects," Zara translated. "Those who seeded the galaxy with listening posts." Reed's face went pale. "Seeded the galaxy? How old is this thing?" "According to the dating on these symbols, approximately 50,000 years. The implications hit them all simultaneously. If this device was that old, and if it was designed to communicate across interstellar distances, then whoever built it might still be out there, and the unusual ships in the outer system. "We need to leave," Torres said firmly. "Now." But Zara was already moving toward the device, drawn by scientific curiosity and the terrible understanding that they might be looking at the key to humanity's survival. The scanner in her hands began to resonate with the crystal beacon, their frequencies synchronizing. "Dr. Blackwood, step away from that thing," Torres ordered, but it was too late. The resonance reached a critical threshold, and the beacon activated fully. Light exploded through the chamber, and a sound beyond hearing filled the air. Every instrument on the dig site went haywire as the beacon sent its signal racing across space at speeds that defied physics. When the light faded, the beacon had gone dormant again, but the damage was done. They had just announced humanity's presence to whoever was listening in the darkness between stars. "What have we done?" Reed whispered. Zara stared at the silent beacon, her scanner showing massive energy expenditure in those few moments of activation. "We've made a call," she said quietly. "The question is, who's going to answer?" High above Mars, long-range sensors detected the energy burst and immediately began tracking its trajectory. The signal was heading toward a region of space where the mysterious ships had first been spotted. In a few hours, it would reach them. Commander Torres was already calling for immediate evacuation, as Zara took one last look at the ancient device. 50,000 years it had waited in the Martian stone. Now, because of a resonance scanner and human curiosity, it had finally found its voice. The answer, when it came, would change everything. The Armada's answer in. The vast emptiness between stars, Captain Thorne Vega stood on the bridge of the Celestial Dawn, watching the holographic display that showed their fleet's position. The Karathi had been traveling for 3 centuries, their massive ships moving through the void in perfect formation. Their civilization had long ago mastered the art of patience. When you lived for millennia, time became a different concept entirely. Thorne's elongated form moved with fluid grace as he checked the navigation console. His people were tall and ethereal, with silvery skin that seemed to capture and reflect light in impossible ways. Their large, dark eyes could perceive spectrums of energy invisible to most species, making them natural navigators of the cosmic deep. "Captain," called Navigator Kess from her station, her voice carrying the musical undertones characteristic of their species. "We're receiving something on the deep frequency." Thorne's attention snapped to immediate focus. The deep frequency was ancient. a communication protocol established when the Karathi first began their great journey across the galaxy. For the past 800 years, it had been silent. Origin? Thorne asked, moving swiftly to Kess's station. Sol system, third planet's moon. No, wait. Kess frowned, her fingers dancing across the crystalline control surface. Fourth planet from their star. The signal is using an authentic deep beacon, but the electromagnetic signature is wrong. Thorne studied the data flowing across the display. The deep beacons had been placed throughout the galaxy during the Karathi's first expansion, millennia ago. They were designed to activate only when their designated species achieved sufficient technological advancement. But this signal, the species designation doesn't match, Kess continued. The beacon was placed for the Zephyrians of that system, but they went extinct 40,000 years ago. This signal is coming from something else. The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. The Zephyrians had been a promising species, intelligent, peaceful, with great potential. The Karathi had placed the beacon on their fourth planet as a safeguard, a way to call for help if they ever faced extinction-level threats. But the Zephyrians had destroyed themselves in wars over dwindling resources, and their civilization had crumbled to dust. Could it be survivors? Asked Communications Officer Dren from his station. Negative, Kess replied, analyzing the data, streams. The biological markers in the signal don't match Zephyrian patterns. This is a completely different species. Thorne felt a chill run through his elongated frame. A different species had somehow found and activated a deep beacon. Either they had discovered it by accident, which raised questions about how advanced they might be, or they had deliberately sought it out, which raised even more troubling possibilities. Set course for the Sol system, Thorne commanded. Maximum velocity. Captain, Dren interjected carefully, shouldn't we consult with the Council first? This is unprecedented. Thorne's dark eyes reflected the starlight streaming through the bridge's transparent walls. The Karathi Council would debate for decades before reaching a decision, and by then it might be too late. The deep beacon protocols were clear. Any activation required immediate investigation. The beacon has been triggered, Thorne said firmly. The protocols are ancient and absolute. We investigate. As the massive Karathi fleet changed course, their ships moving through hyperspace with technology that bent the fabric of reality itself, Thorne couldn't shake a feeling of unease. In all their recorded history, no species had ever found and activated another's deep beacon. The implications were staggering. 3 days later, the Karathi fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system. What they found was not what any of them had expected. Captain, Kess reported, her voice filled with wonder. The system is inhabited by a young species. They call themselves humans, but they're not confined to their homeworld. They have colonies throughout the system, including the fourth planet where the beacon was activated. Thorne studied the tactical display showing human settlements and space traffic. These humans had achieved interplanetary travel, but were clearly still centuries away from interstellar capability. How had they found the beacon? There's more, Kess continued. Long-range sensors detect non-human vessels in the outer system. 3 ships, configuration unknown, but they're definitely not from this species. The plot thickened. Unknown vessels, a species that shouldn't have been able to find the beacon, and now first contact protocols that had never been designed for this situation. Open a channel to the fourth planet, Thorne ordered. Locate the source of the beacon. Signal. The communication took several minutes to establish, the Karathi systems adapting to the primitive human technology. When the connection stabilized, Thorne found himself looking at 3 humans in what appeared to be some kind of excavation site. The lead human, a female with short dark hair and intelligent eyes, stepped forward. She spoke in their crude verbal language, but the Karathi translation systems quickly adapted. I'm Dr. Zara Blackwood. Are you the ones the beacon was meant to contact? Thorne considered his response carefully. Honesty seemed the wisest approach. I am Captain Thorne Vega of the Karathi Deep Fleet. The beacon you activated was placed here for a species called the Zephyrians. who became extinct many millennia ago. We were not expecting to find your people. The human's face showed a mixture of awe and concern. Then we made a mistake. We found the beacon by accident during an archaeological expedition. When our equipment resonated with it, the device activated on its own. By accident? Thorne felt a flutter of something. That might have been amusement. Your species accidentally activated a deep beacon? That should be impossible. Another human, older and clearly a leader of some kind, stepped forward. Dr. Blackwood, we're receiving reports of more ships entering the system, large ones. Thorne checked his displays and saw what the humans had detected. His own fleet now fully emerged from hyperspace. 50 massive Karathi vessels, each one larger than anything these humans had ever seen. Those are our ships, Thorne assured them. We mean no harm, but I must ask, what are those other vessels in your outer system? They are not Karathi, and they do not appear to be of your construction. The humans exchanged worried glances. We don't know, Dr. Blackwood admitted. They appeared shortly after we activated the beacon. We've been trying to establish communication, but they haven't responded. Thorne's unease deepened. Unknown ships arriving after a beacon activation could mean only one thing. Someone else had been listening to the deep frequency, and if they weren't Karathi, they were likely hostile. Dr. Blackwood, Thorne said urgently, you need to evacuate your people from the fourth planet immediately. Those ships, I believe they may be devourers. Devourers? A species that follows deep beacon signals hoping to find worlds ripe for conquest. If they are what I think they are, your entire system is in grave danger. Even as he spoke, Thorne's tactical officer was reporting energy buildups from the unknown vessels. They were preparing for attack. All ships, battle stations, Thorne commanded, then turned back to the human communication. Dr. Blackwood, get your people to safety. We will handle the devourers. Wait, the human said desperately. Your people? You'll fight for us? Even though we're not the species you were supposed to help? Thorne paused, considering the question. The protocols were clear. Protect the species that activated the beacon. But these humans had done so by accident, and they were primitive by Karathi standards. By all rights, he should simply leave and let events unfold naturally. But looking at Dr. Blackwood's face, seeing the fear and hope in her expression, Thorne made a decision that would have far-reaching consequences for both species. The beacon was activated, he said finally. The protocols are clear regardless of intent. You are now under Karathi protection. As the first energy weapons lit up the darkness between the planets, Thorne realized that this first contact would be nothing like the careful, planned encounters the Karathi had experienced before. This would be baptism by fire, two species thrown together by accident, forced to trust each other in the face of an enemy neither had chosen to face. The deep beacon had been silent for 8 centuries. Now, because of human curiosity and an accident of resonance, it had called forth both salvation and destruction. The outcome would determine not just the fate of humanity, but the future relationship between two species who had never been meant to meet. In the archaeological pit on Mars, Dr. Zara Blackwood looked up at the stars and wondered if her discovery would be remembered as humanity's greatest triumph or its final mistake. The battle for Sol system was about to begin,